He tapped his finger on the marble desk, impatient about having to wait for the others to appear. "What is taking so damn long?" he yelled in frustration at his assistant. "They should be arriving at any moment, sir," the attendant responded, sounding like they were used to these outbursts. The man looked at the ring of magic mirrors that were set in a horseshoe formation. Instead of seeing his reflections, each one appeared to reflect the image of a void. Sometimes the man thought that something would come crawling out of those damn mirrors during the middle of the night as he slept. He often thought about shattering each one so he wouldn't have to see the image it displayed. One by one, each of the mirrors showed a glowing red number. Each of the numbers represented a member of the council. "Took you people long enough," the man hissed at the mirrors. "There is no need to be so snippy, 14, the voice with the number 1 on it remarked. "Well, some of us are busy people who do not have the luxury to wait for everyone to appear at the pre-arranged meeting." He emphasized the fact there was a set time for them to meet. "Someone did not have their meal for the day," a feminine voice giggled, sounding amused at his anger. "Let's just move on to the topic at hand, shall we?" a gruff voice asked the group. "Yes, 14. What is the status at your location? Are you successful at gathering talented individuals to join our cause?" Number 1 asked. "We are seeing some success at recruiting students, though many of them are not promising when looking at their fighting abilities," Number 14 answered. "Sounds like things are not going as well as you make it sound like," the feminine voice mused, seeming to delight at his struggles. "Shut your mouth, you whore!" the man yelled at the voice. "Calm down, 14. 9. You need to stop antagonizing him," a man's voice said, sounding exasperated. "I cannot help it. He makes it so easy, especially with his failures," 9 giggled. 9. "Do you have anything to report on your side?" 1 asked her, ignoring the usual spat between 14 and 9. Sounding smug, 9 responded, "Yes. The elves are nearing completion of their weapon. When the weapon is complete, they will be able to better defend themselves against the overflow." "I knew that we should have wiped them out when we had the chance," a woman snarled. "You know as well as all of us that it was not possible for us to do that," a different male voice answered. "Based on our influence and resources available, we would have turned suspicions towards us if we forced the issue. The excuse we gave would only work to give us a chance to assassinate several of their key figures," he continued, sounding cold and logical. 5 is right. Declaring war on the Elf Kingdom would not have been possible and only brings in more questions, 1 agreed. 9. Is there any way that you would be able to prevent this from occurring? He asked her. "The Queen seems to be highly suspicious, so access to the weapon has been restricted. I am working on getting an agent into the project, but I do not believe that he will be able to make it on time," 9 said, sounding annoyed. "This is a problem, 9. I want you to work with 11 and try to figure something out. 14. You will be receiving some assistance from one of our agents there, so make sure you complete the task that we assigned to you," 1 stated. "Remember what we are doing this for. The cycle cannot be broken." One by one, each of the mirrors returned to their original appearance, letting him know that they had ended their connection. "Damn that man," 14 snarled, clenching his fists. Who was he to make some lowly agent babysit him? Han sat in his study, thinking about how he was going to proceed with this. He never had any experience at city development and planning, so this was new territory for him. First, he would need to find where his city would be located. Bringing up the map of the continent, he looked at where he was currently. His stronghold was located north of the kingdom, near the empire. This wasn't a good place to have a city built, because it would leave him vulnerable to multiple fronts. Even if they aren't able to break past his defenses, he didn't like the idea of dealing with mosquitoes buzzing around him. South of the kingdom, there was a vast desert that seemed to take up a lot of the continent. Looking at this area, it appeared to be an ideal location for what he had planned. By having it inside the desert, the ability for other kingdoms to interfere with the daily activities would be significantly limited. Gathering up his companions, he had Helania transport all of them to where he wished to establish his city. In moments, they were standing on top of a dune and surrounded by sand as far as the eye could see. The sun blasted them with heat and would have made any average person break out into sweats. The first thing he needed to do was establish the ability for this city to survive. This would require water to exist. Opening up a screen, Han looked at the landscape as if he was using a satellite. "Let us see if there are any natural water sources," he murmured. The map was then speckled with various shades of blue, based on naturally existing groundwater. There wasn't a large aquifer for easy access to groundwater, which would be an issue. A large city would need massive amounts of water to be able to survive, especially in this kind of environment. "Let us add some water into the ground," Han said, as he created the ideal placement of an aquifer. If he remembered from his classes in high school, an aquifer created through water-bearing permeable rock, rock fractures, and unconsolidated materials. Highlighting a part of the landscape, Han then made a slicing motion on the map to get a cross-section of the land. Bringing up the menu, he selected some clay and created a barrier to hold the aquifer. "I wonder if I'm creating an aquifer or aquitard." He cursed his lack of attention during Earth science class during his freshman year at high school. He then selected the necessary rocks, gravel, sand, and silt to house all the water. Then he began to fill in the area with fresh water. To make sure that this water source would be protected, Han added a cleansing element to the area. By doing this, even if they were to pour gallons and gallons of toxic chemicals, the water would still stay pure. Next, Han began to move all of the sand in front of him to get to the hard ground. If there was one thing he learned, it was not to build heavy things on soft ground. He remembered a famous airport in Japan that was steadily sinking because they didn't place the support beams deep enough. Once he reached the hardened soil, he put additional reinforcements into it. On top of the ground, he placed a giant slab of concrete on top. With some forward thinking, the concrete would have bacillus bacteria and calcium lactate inside of it, so if any cracks appeared and water leaked in, the bacteria would excrete limestone. The limestone will fill the gaps and the concrete would self-heal. In front of them was a large space the size of a modern city back on Earth. It was pretty impressive to see something like this in a fantasy setting. The best part was there didn't seem to be a city that rivaled his creation in this world. Those that immigrated to the city would be able to not feel crowded and help provide space for healthy population growth. The next thing was a strong wall. Having a wall was necessary to protect against the overflow and invaders. Since he had plenty of space to work with, he designed the walls to be 500 feet thick, with steel I-beams strategically placed for structural support. Making the walls this thick was slightly overkill, but he thought about ancient cities like Troy that were famous for their walls. Raising the wall, he stopped when it got to around 1,000 feet. He pictured these walls lasting as long as the ancient pyramids had, though in better condition. All around the wall, Han placed wards to protect against physical and magical damage. "Try destroying those walls," he yelled out happily, imagining armies crashing against the walls like the sea against a rocky shore.